The game is important.
Game is important. It's summertime too. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? No. All those in favor of the agenda? Aye. Any nays? None. So we put the delegations and the presentations right up front so you don't have to sit here for an hour or so. So you can come right up to these chairs here, one of you or both of you, and slide a chair up.
Okay.
Or you can stay there.
What would you prefer?
It's up
Can
to
you
you.
hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
For the last several years, I've been kind of looking at the shoreline, and Crystal and I have talked, and it's very hard to try and see what you can do on that wall because there's a big chasm between the wall and the parking lot, right? Like, you can't just lean a ladder up against it and get painting at it. But I thought a way to handle it, if we can all get together, and I really wish this was about 30 years ago because we all knew people that could cut things out back then, and now there's nearly no one. The guy that you mentioned to me, he's not doing it anymore.
Okay.
Anyway, do any of you know Troy Bisto? He works at Rocheville's. He was a dog catcher's son.
Okay.
Anyway, he's agreed to do the whale. And the reason we had been looking at this is reclaimed wood, which he can get lots of. But he's also, I don't know the price because he'll never tell you. He'll say, what do you think? So I guess what I think we both are maybe hoping for, even if it were working kind, like if the guys from town could paint that half-done mural thing out, just put a coat of paint on it. I thought they might have the equipment to do it. I don't know anything about any of that. And I wasn't sure if there would be any grant money coming in another year. I know that you've been working on the middle for quite a while now to get that fixed up. But I wanted to bring it to you. And even things like these birds, I'm sure there's people that can cut these things out. And your dad even can do some.
Yeah.
But my fear is to not overwork everyone that's in the area because we're all old. I mean, I'm 74. I can't climb up there anymore and do that. So it needs a basic code. It needs the stuff to be applied. And any help that we could get with people who can cut out, or if there's any money coming in. So it's pretty simple. So these would all be totally flat. And what would be nice to see done is if, say this house had a frame and there were slats, so it's not just a cutout plywood piece of wood, that it looks like
3D reference.
a little house thing. So do you have anything you want to say? No.
I asked Tom, what's the history of that piece? Did you paint it? Who
No,
painted it?
a fellow-
You mean the mural that's there now?
Yeah,
It was Mark Lincoln that did it. I don't even know if he's in the area or if he's passed away.
It was years.
It's been
long time, yeah.
long time. I mean, we thought about just trying to get at it somehow to just cover it.
Mhm.
But it is like a main focal point, like to where all the tourists walk, because in back behind us we have the marine, we have what we used to have live music before pre-COVID, right? So it is somewhere where a lot of people walk past to see. Thought it would be kind of cool to have something
There.
there.
And what we were talking about was that we do kind of push, like when I painted the tourist bureau, we kind of push the Maud Lewis folk thing here,
Yeah.
and these are kind of folky. So it's a lot. It's a matter of finding people.
Well,
and-
local artists
Yeah,
would be nice to have on the
asking them.
building, you know what I mean? But,
Like I said, all the buildings were nice to have murals and stuff.
yes.
Yeah.
No, we were just wondering if the town was involved
No, originally,
30 years ago, whatever it was.
Originally, Mark Lincoln did it in pieces,
Yeah.
and somehow, I don't know how.
Your dad?
Dad would know. He should have been here, but he can't.
Yeah.
It went up in sections, I believe.
Yes.
But it's such a mess now, and I don't know how it could even be.
Well, those sections now to buy, and I think you might have. It's like 32 feet long.
Yeah.
So I would expect that it's 8 feet they go up this way and, the 4 goes into the 8. But anyway,
We
whatever
were
it
even,
is.
you were even thinking about doing this up in like sections.
Yeah, well, yeah, we would cut these out and they'd be
It'd
applied.
be pre-done and then put up.
But I'm pricing that board now for, the gardens, and like it's gone to, it can be $190 a sheet.
Everything's so expensive right now.
I should block plywood.
Yeah, well, and this one,
$200.
the best thing you would put on there
That's the thing.
Yeah.
would be an illustrated one-sided finished.
Yeah.
It's sort of an aluminum cover on it.
Oh.
And I know at Home Hardware it's $196, but I've been dickering in Dartmouth to try and get it for under $100 for our shed. So, I'm not good for much else but dickering and drawing now. I'm not climbing anything. So, yeah, so that was kind of the reason, but.
You have to, if anybody's gonna invest in, they're gonna need some costs. Obviously, some
Oh,
total
yeah.
costs, whether it's gonna be 1,000, 5,000, or
Yeah,
whatever it's gonna be.
yeah.
And, then, I don't, council, we can look around, see what's out there for
Yeah, because
grants and things
they
like
weren't even looking for everything, but you know what I'm like I've done everything in town for free. And I want to do that because I think we owe it to our town to do what we can. So I don't think they're looking for all the money.
No, not at
But
all.
it's been a terrible year and a half. My biggest fear after talking to some of the people is that the restaurants aren't all gonna last another year if it stays like it's being right now.
that.
And that's not unusual.
We're down to 2,000 people, we have 30
Yeah.
places to eat.
So, and,
Yep.
Way too many.
yeah.
I know all about it.
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
30 places, yeah. But anyway, yes, I think you need to sit down and put some total costs together.
Yeah.
And,
Well, part of it
and
would
then we
be
can look,
you guys deciding if, I don't know who you have to talk to, but if your guys could be involved in, some of the work for cost, like, as I said, painting that piece of wall.
Yeah, that's a conversation you can have with Tom, and if the crew is available.
If the crew
If we could do that.
Could do that, and if they could adhere the wooden things. It's all about, like, when Dad and I painted, the house downtown that we had, Maritime Hotel brought their cherry pickers thing over, and that's how we painted the top part of the house, because they were next door.
Yeah.
Like, so I think that's kind of why, and that's why I am trying to get some guesstimates. But if you could eventually just come up with any donation, like, I don't think anybody's looking for the town to do it all,
Yeah, that would be,
So,
be a heated discussion with
Yeah.
others around town.
yeah.
Although you can reach that board with, to cover it over, you can reach that, they have those long rollers, I don't know, the 12-foot rollers, or that you can just.
Yeah, I know, but you wouldn't get people like me that are free, and I can't do
No,
that.
but you don't need scaffolding and all kinds of stuff.
No,
Just
no, no.
paint it, just
Uh,
paint it.
You can see why it's probably, like, so many of us are getting old.
Yeah.
Like, that did all this stuff.
Mm.
But I'm still on board, I can stain, I can paint when things aren't already up there. And I have been trying to find people who can do this. I'm on oxygen at night,
Have, I don't know how big this whale is on yours.
The whale
Have
would be about 5 feet.
you talked to Conway Workshop?
No, but I know that Troy has the wood, and I have to beg him to take money. He never wants to
No.
take money. So if I know that he will do that, maybe there is something else at the workshop. Even Rick at Print and Promo, he said if I weren't so busy, he said, I have all that equipment out in my shop. So even if I can hook somebody up with Rick,
Yeah, 'cause that's a scroll saw, that's a big scroll
Yeah.
saw. That's why I mentioned Conway Workshop, they have a workshop.
Yeah.
Could be a spot.
And I could go there and supervise them. I know most of the kids.
Yeah.
So, so I guess my first question that can be said without knowing what the rest would be is if you think the guys would have time and ability to paint that over and maybe attach these pieces when they get done.
Mm.
And then if you do get any grant money or working up money, just donate something. I could be wrong, but I'm guessing. Let me see what sizes these are. Let me see. I would guess that you'd be looking at $5,000. And that's high.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking about the price of wood and the cutting it out and getting the staining and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. There's, for the tourism industry, restaurant service industry, there is a $1,500 grant that just came up for marketing, that would be considered
Yeah.
marketing. That just came up last week, so that's available.
We can market this downtown with
It's
it.
called turning the tide.
And turning the
Turning the
tide,
tide is bringing up cranes too.
grants too, so.
How are you coming with the other one getting together?
It's lying on the floor, and it needs to be put on the wall, so.
You can't do it up yet?
Well, it's been time consuming, just getting it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's probably big work too.
Yeah.
Okay,
I would try to sit down and come up with some real costs, and we could see whether we could cooperate together or look at
but you understand,
opportunities and grants. And
Yeah. but you understand what the first thing I'm asking for?
Yes, I see.
Without the cost is.
Yeah. That would have to be a discussion with the
That would-
CAO
yeah.
and staff, and see whether it can be done, whether we can actually put our guys on the side of your building. That's,
On the outside?
yeah.
Well, don't they go down and do downtown? At Cannon?
The cannons, the
Don't they-
promenade?
The murals up
Yeah,
there?
there's some kind of legal agreement there, Tom can look into that, but that's, yeah. Yeah. That's that.
Those belong to the town though.
That one?
It's different.
The town owned. And,
The town owns those buildings?
no, the town owns, like,
Stuff going
the artwork that's down on the promenade now, on, like,
We didn't know.
we own the actual thing, and we get the,
Hey, you know, we
Yeah,
don't
you
care.
can see our work on the building.
After all.
and we have an agreement with the building owner.
Well, you know what's funny? When you were working on that, Roger called and asked me if I'd do a mural on there, when you were working on the last project. And I said to him, mural, I said, Roger, I don't really think you can ask me to do that because that's a town project. And he didn't seem to think that was a problem, but I told him it was a problem, that goes through the town, so.
And at the time, we were looking for something that was going to last a long, long time. And,
Yeah.
it's-
Well, that's what I'm hoping by doing this way. And if it is done kind of stainy looking, as I said, I would not use any paint outside except one shot. But I would use stain. Because you can, like as you said, you long over to put a little extra stain on it. So, but any other kind of paint you use is going to disappear shortly. I mean, if you look at how old down the eye doctor is, and the boat on Larchie's, and the reason Larchie's boat, that the red is coming off, is because it was done with a primer paint that they actually put on boats. So we didn't care, because that's when they fixed them up, is when the white starts coming off.
Yeah, it comes bleaching through.
So,
Any questions?
you probably heard enough from me, I'm going.
No, no.
Is it just regular paint you want on the building to start though, or you want
Yeah,
one
I
shot
think
on the
that that
building
to
too?
do with, because it's not going to have edges and things, like when you're painting things like this, you've got it exposed all around the edge of the wood, everything can get underneath it. So, my thought would be either have to stain it or use one shot, because you can throw some stain on pretty easily. But to repaint the whole thing is hard. And I don't think anybody wants to put out the money to paint all of this in one shot, because you're looking at a lot of money.
Have you actually tested the quality of the wood that's there now, whether it's rough?
No, that's what we have, your dad was gonna look at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he said he was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's been there a long, long time, so
It has,
it may
yeah.
not be any good anyway, so.
We should try to buy it on our way home.
Yeah, we should. Not that we can get up in it and really see it, but
I can usually tell.
there's,
Yeah.
Just walk on the edge of the railing.
yeah.
So,
Okay,
it's a thought.
yeah, it's a thought.
You guys talk.
Anybody got any questions for me? Thing is, we really try to refine your costs and ideas.
So what should I do? Go find a carpenter and get a quote? Is that what you, like,
No,
I wouldn't even
right now
know
I'm
who I
saying-
would
Right now,
talk
I'm
to.
saying It's up to you to do that, not
No,
us.
what I'm trying to do is get hold of individuals, because I think we have a better chance of getting someone who cuts out lighthouses,
To help.
to cut out a 6-foot lighthouse, and say, will you do all 9 of these?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I may even give them a price. Could you do this for that much money? when I find out who they are. That's the.
That's the
We can't-
problem, is
yeah,
to find
We can't
people.
commit to anything, whether even we're allowed to get our crew up on it and all that. So that's a discussion we have to have, so.
Check with
Yeah.
Greg Thomas, he knows good people.
Who?
Greg Thomas.
Okay.
Greg, cause he used to do
Thomas.
the woodsman competition stuff, he knows a lot of wood carvings and stuff. So Greg
But
Thomas.
you can talk about whether you would consider
Yeah,
painting it, right?
we can have that conversation, but.
Because even if nothing goes on it, it looks like hell.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
But if there are grants out there,
yeah.
you would have to have a full cost.
Right.
Oh, yes.
Before it could be.
And,
Before,
yeah, and I know that we have particularly, concentrated on the Cannon area. I mean, there's been great things done down there too, but as far as decorative, you know, it's just kind of a mess, so. Anyway, it's all a thought.
Yep,
I'll keep working on it, but,
and I'll turn my Facebook Messenger off.
but yeah, I'll,
Okay, good. No, you work on that and we'll have that conversation at some point.
so separate the painting from the mural. Can you paint the damn wall?
That's up to the CEO, the director, they would have to look at and see whether or not to put people on the side of your building.
Tom's used to me, right, Tom?
Yeah.
I said, you're used to me, so.
Yeah.
What do you used to call Leslie?
Yeah.
All right,
Good. No,
well, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
this is the only reason we're here tonight for you fellas. Now we're going home.
It's true. Oh my gosh.
No.
But and Tom,
It's right there, special meeting.
and Tom can tell me whether he thinks ever in the wild world it's possible to use guys on a building like that.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah, we'll have that
maybe it
conversation.
can never happen, but it does happen in places, so, you know. And then maybe I can get your license signed down for downtown.
Yeah.
That you want a few years.
Yeah.
I don't have many years left. If I live as long as my parents and their families, I have 1 year. We got a lot to do.
Forget that.
I can't cut wood, so not much help. I can try to paint.
Don't worry.
Okay.
Well, I might even be able to take it down to, Larches to, you know, do the paint or staining stuff. So that it's not somewhere that it's gonna bother people with the smell and stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, you're a pretty tough customer.
Thanks.
Even for a mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks, thanks.
Okay. Where were we? Minutes of the previous meeting, June the 7th.
June 7th.
Everybody had a chance to read those? Any errors or omissions? If none, we have motion to approve. So moved. So seconded. Okay. Council Turnbull, Council Sonia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any nays? None. Special council meeting, June the 21st. Everybody has read those?
Those ones were shorter.
Pardon?
So those ones were a lot shorter.
Shorter, yeah, we should read that. Motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, those two. All those in favor of that?
Aye.
Any nays? None. Business arising from the minutes of an unfinished business, Digby General Hospital parking fees, that come up, so I brought it up at the NSHA meeting. They said you're more than welcome to write a letter to the Department of Health, and see what kind of response you're gonna get. You're gonna get a response saying they're revenue generating for the province as a whole, not maybe individually at each hospital. But if they take it off at Digby General Hospital, they'd have to take it off all hospitals. But I said, well, we'll write a letter anyway.
They were off of hospitals.
They were some, but not all. But they said that what they thought, they were upgrading and changing stuff, so they just left the gate open. I know, I drove through the one in Yarmouth, yeah.
Middleton was wide.
Yeah. This one was wide for a little while. But I said we would write a letter.
What inconsistency?
Yeah. It's part, it's,
It's even more.
yeah. So Sometimes when you're being recorded, you have to refrain.
Yeah.
But I said we would draft the letter and send it to him. I always had an issue with them going on to begin with because in small rural areas like this, it's hard enough now to come up with $1 or $2. Now they're asking us to park, and most people tend to park over in the mall parking lot, walk there. So,
Well, most people who are sick really don't need to be taxed at
Taxed,
the
yeah.
level.
so we'll put some of that all in the letter, and then we'll have a draft. We'll get it off, and we'll send it drafted. But that's, to be fair, the folks at the meeting I attended were here and not.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Okay. CAO report.
Okay. Before I go into what I've got here written in my report, I just want to talk a little bit about our operating budget.
Yeah.
And where we are. The preliminary draft was, I received that from the Director of Finance on Friday. So I reviewed it and shot some holes in it, made some amendments. It's going, send it back for him to reformat. And tomorrow I've scheduled a meeting between the Director of Finance and the Director of Public Works to go over the whole budget. I mean, Director of Public Works, that Public Works portion of the budget is a large portion of the budget. And I want to, sit and, I think there's some massaging that can be done, I'll call it that way. But I wanted to have the discussion with the department head before I do that. So, so basically, having said that, and you have it fair by tomorrow, then we should. What I'm thinking is that the week of the 12th, which is next week, to have made a whole budget meeting. So can we sort of set a date?
Yeah, look at dates in your
Look
calendar.
at what dates
Monday.
of the next week?
Monday? The Monday would be good, Monday.
That's Orangeman Day.
That's what?
Orangeman, it's a holiday in Canada.
Oh, I thought you all.
Is that Irish then?
Yeah, look at calendars, you think Monday is a good, we can do it Monday night. And then we'll be setting other dates for it too, so.
So I guess in saying that, what I was hoping for is then the 19th is a regular committee of the whole. If there's anything that needs further discussion by council, it can be done at that committee of the whole meeting. If there's some final tweaks that have to be done. So we're going to depend on what happens on the 12th, right? And then possibly have a special council meeting following that to actually set the budget. Get the budget set.
Okay. So we'll look at the 12th, everybody look at the calendars and confirm it with Leslie.
Leslie might not be here.
Leslie, well, you'll be here up till Friday though, won't you, or Thursday this week? Yeah, we'll get him in. Yeah. We don't need him, yeah. You'll have lots of time, we're sitting at the top. Yeah.
Where are you on the 12th, by the way?
That's the day that Dan wanted me to swap for him. Did you hear anything back on that matter?
No.
Okay.
Then it might be fine.
Good. You guys work that out.
We will, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
12th is fine for me.
Make Dan take notes.
No, they didn't work.
Okay, time to do it with hands, not
He's
crayons.
supposed to be filling in for you, so that's still for you.
That's right.
Yeah, so there you go.
Could be
Okay.
Let's do the 12th.
Okay, so that's the plan right now, the 12th, unless it's, something else comes up. diverts us, a hurricane or something.
That's weird.
Yeah, Habs went afraid, yes.
Alright, so that's, alright, so. Okay, continuing on my report, COVID-19, so, both Town Hall and the Visitor Information Center open to the public on 21st of June. So, all COVID-19 regulations stipulated by Nova Scotia Health are being followed. Phase 3 of the Nova Scotia reopening plan commenced on the 30th of June. The meetings, including council and committee meetings and training sessions, indoor and outdoor, are allowed 50% of the venue capacity, up to 100 people indoors and up to 150 people outdoors, with social distancing and mask requirements. When meetings and training are hosted by a business or organization, including provincial and municipal governments. Events and festivals, so festivals, special events and arts and cultures, events like performances, 50% of the venue's capacity, up to 100 people indoors and up to 150 people outdoors, with social distancing and mask requirements, when hosted by a business or organization. Organizers must have a COVID-19 prevention plan. So the Downtown Business Association is planning to have their music events for the summer. Wharf-Rat Rally has canceled this year's festival. Lobster Bash has moved their event to July, from July to Labor Day weekend, and Scallop Days is planning on holding a 2-day event on August 6th and 7th.
So, how would that work for Lobster Bash, let's say? Is it 150 people total at one venue, or in the entire town?
I think, well, see, by that time, we're gonna be
Beyond-
further down the road.
Yeah.
The restrictions are gonna be, but they're gonna have to abide by whatever restrictions they are.
So let's say they have today, there's 150 limit.
Yeah.
Would that be 150 people attending the music at the
Exactly.
bandstand?
Yeah.
And it could be 150 down here at another event.
Gotcha. That's right.
Yeah, so it's what, per venue.
Yeah.
So basically, now I know that, in the discussions that I had with, a member from the Scallop Day Committee, they're planning most of their events to be held down at Digby Center, between the parking lot at Digby Center and the stage, so they can control the crowds, right? They're not even gonna have a vendor's village, or like, as usual, any vendors, or they may have 2 or 3 vendors that'll be set up in the parking lot. But they're gonna, because Digby Center has basically an in and an out gate that they can set up, so they'll let so many people in, and when so many people leave, they can let more in. That's how they plan to control it, right? So, they're working on their, plan to submit to the provincial government as we speak, so.
So Tom, if they had 200 people on the sidewalk waiting to get in, do we have to control that too?
Social distance.
You have to
Fiscal
move
distance.
or
Fiscal
until
distance.
they can come in, or?
Yeah, I guess basically, there's some things that you're just not gonna be able
No,
to
you
control.
can't. No, that's
Right?
right.
But if you put the protocols in place.
Right.
And you can
That's all that matters.
you show that you've put them in place.
Right.
And you say, if they expect that they're gonna have people waiting, and they put some X's or something on the sidewalk, 6 feet
Just
apart.
like a bar where you line up to go in.
Yeah, and that, then, that would suffice. It's it's about the same thing as, the lineups going into a retail store.
Right.
And they're outside, right?
Right.
They don't control how many people is out there waiting in the line, but they try to control the distance and
Right.
that. So,
Premier said today, if we behave ourselves, it might be open up a little earlier than,
Yeah.
stage 5 or stage 2, we call it, whatever, but it could be open up a little earlier.
okay. The next item is flags. So, as you probably have noticed, the Canadian flags are flying on Admiral's Walk for the commemoration of Canada Day. This has been a past practice. Subsequently, the town receives public pressure to have the Canadian flags on Admiral's Walk lowered to half-mast due to the discovery of hundreds of children found in unmarked graves at several residential schools across the country. At Mayor Cleveland's request, the flags were lowered at half-mast on Admiral's Walk as well as on the promenade and the visitor information center.
I just add something, Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was what was happening across the province again and across the country. At the same time, I was getting some requests from some indigenous within the town. Maybe there's more things we should do or possibly could do, and I spoke to them. And some that I was deferring everything to Bear First Nations. I talked to Chief Potter a number of times on what we should do, and that's who I was seeking advice from. They're our closest First Nations community, and we've always wanted to build a good relationship with them. And they are a very important economic driver in this community, so I felt that I should only talk to them, and this was on her advice, and I've asked her about some other things that we could do that maybe that'll come out in the future in regards to our response to all this. So it's difficult to respond to each individual person, so I said that I think that the Bear First Nations is our go-to people. So, yeah.
So Tom, the flags have two knobs on them. Is that where it is now? Is that considered a half-mast where they
That's
are?
what we have on Admiral's Walk.
Right.
We set them up that way. Basically, it's not real half-mast,
Right.
but it is lowered. It's down the width of the flag lowered.
Right.
And the reason that we do that is because of the vandalism that we've had in the past, right? And so basically, they can be at half-mast and still be out of reach of somebody. I mean, somebody can still climb the pole if they wish and get it, but before, when we had the shorter poles and that, we couldn't put anything half-mast. Nothing could be put half-mast because they'd be dragging on the ground, and then we really have heard something about the flag being on the ground.
Can't touch the ground.
Yeah, we're not supposed to touch the ground, so, you know. So basically that's why they are, but I mean, if you drive and you look, you can actually see that they're not at full mast.
Yeah.
You know,
They
they're
look
not
nice.
full half mast, but they're as close as we can get at this point. So anyway, so basically, the current plan is that the Canadian flags will remain until this week, and then we'll replace them with the provincial and territorial flags, which will be flown at half-mast, full mast, sorry. The flags at the promenade and the VIC will remain at half-mast until further notice as determined by the federal government. And so basically, the Canadian flags on all federal buildings right now are flying that way under discretionary authority of the Prime Minister for an extraordinary event. So basically, if you go on the website and it lists when Canadian flag shall be at half-mast, and you're down and find that, and it says until further notice. So there's no date that the flag is supposed to be back up at this time. So my thoughts were to follow that protocol, and because all the federal buildings in town still have theirs at half-mast, and we're talking about the Canadian flag. The other two flags that are flown, the provincial and the town flags, will also be half-mast, because any flag that's on with the Canadian flag, when that gets lowered, they get lowered as well. because the Canadian flag is supposed to be at least at the same level, if not higher than any other flag that is flying on the same, especially on the same mast.
You're talking about putting provincial flags back up on Admiral's Walk at half-mast or full-mast?
Full mast.
Shouldn't they be at half-mast if we're still flying the Canadian flag at half-mast?
They don't, yeah, the protocol dictates that. I don't think it dictates half-mast or provincial.
No.
No, federal flag is the flag.
The provincial flag's under provincial jurisdiction, and the Premier of Nova Scotia said that the provincial flags were going back to full mast.
Oh, okay.
Right, so that's why, you know, when we're talking about, and basically what I seen of the people that, of the comments that was received by the town, was about the Canadian flags not being at half-mast. There was nothing about any other flag but the Canadian flag, right? With the relation of Canada Day and everything else. So that's why, you know, now, I'm totally open to direction from council, right?
Has there been, under Manitoba's provincial government, has there been a directive to fly their flag at half-mast, or British Columbia, or are you gonna get
I don't know.
into some half-mast and some?
Yeah, that's the issue, because if you have, if Nova Scotia is full mast and then you have the one next to it half mast, it's just not really
Right.
real good, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, basically, the reason that we fly all the flags is to say, you know, it's part of Confederation, and flying in the order of that each province that joined Confederation. That's how the layout of the provincial flags. That's the way they've been since I've been here, and probably ever since we flew them on Admiral's Walk.
yeah, I think it would get messy if we had to.
I'd say one thing we should try to do, if we're able to, is if we're gonna be keeping the Canadian flags at half-mast at the other locations, is make sure we put out something indicating why we're doing that. So to let folks know we're doing it in solidarity with with everything that's going on with respect to the residential schools, and at least put out that communication, because I did get that as feedback from a couple people I reached out to, because they had posted some stuff about the town, and I thought I'd reach out just to get some of their thoughts on it. And one of them said it would probably be as simple as, in their view anyway, making sure we're communicating what we're doing with respect to the flags. So not necessarily changing, putting the other flags up, but just to consider putting out a statement regarding why the Canadian flags will still be flown at half-mast.
Yeah, easily done, and it was something there. But
It was something.
I think there was something. Residential schools that they're looking at.
Yeah, and that's the thing, we don't know how long this could go, because, I mean, every time we find a new discovery, it's like ripping the scab off again, and, you know, so,
Difficult.
it's difficult, and that's why I guess, from my point of view, I said, if we follow the federal government's protocol on the Canadian flag, we can't go wrong. Or we shouldn't be going wrong, because we're following the Canadian protocol. And if they get an issue with that, then they can take that up with the federal government, right? So.
Well, in reality is we're required to follow the federal protocols when it comes to flying the Canadian flag. Those are the ones that dictate flying your nation's flag, so.
Yeah.
And I have a book in the mayor's office here somewhere, so, too, on the protocols of flags.
He gets an office.
Well, not right now. It's rented out.
It's rented out.
Yeah, it's rented out.
Okay. The next item is town property PID number 303-78558. That's the landlocked piece of property up on Victoria Street. So basically, I did meet with Mark Camo, the town's legal counsel, and Derek DeWolf of the Wolf and Morris Survey, discussed the migration of the property. And so Derek had found in his preliminary research that the deed description for property PID number 30225668 indicated that it included part of PID number 303-78558. So Mark believes that this is maybe an error. So it was decided that a further, more extensive search into PID number 3022568 would be the best approach to determine whether or not there was an error in that property description. If there is an error, then if there isn't an error, then that means that what it boils down to is how much that we actually survey, right? And how much should be really ours.
Is there going to be issues with encroachment from any of those homes, do you know, up in there? Is
No.
anybody built in there?
No.
No?
That was the question, we had that discussion, that was brought up about whether there was encroachment, and basically even with the pictometry aerial view, and we put the map over top of it, it's all grown up with alders and trees and stuff like that, and there's nothing that can be seen that anybody has anything on that property from abutting properties.
They should all be recent surveys anyway, 'cause everything along there is new, yeah. Or mostly new, yeah. Okay.
So basically, that's where we are with that. He's gonna do that before he actually sends any crew out to do any survey work. He's gonna do that paperwork, find it, the findings, and then we'll go from there. The last thing on my report is the cross connection control program. So the control program was drafted by staff, and which we required under the Water Commission's approval to operate. And it's also supported by the Water Commission's schedule of rules and regulations governing the supply of water and water services approved by the NSUARB. So it was submitted on time, and to Nova Scotia Environment and Climate Change for their review and approval. I just received an email this evening basically saying that we have complied with our directive, and so that cleans that directive off our slate, so to speak. We have complied with it. I don't know how long it will take for them to actually give the approval. They have to approve the plan. And once they approve the plan, then we can actually put the full plan in action. Basically, we are practicing most of what's in the plan with cross contamination and control and backflow preventers, especially in new construction. We're ensuring that in new connection to the system have those appropriate devices in place. So basically, once the program has been approved, and then basically we will be starting on the backlog of existing customers. Go in and basically do inspections and say, okay, you have them, you're good, or no, you don't have one. But basically, we're going to be focusing more on the commercials and multi-unit residentials as opposed to the individual homes. I mean, everybody is there's a risk everywhere, but they're the least on the totem pole.
So you just I was just going to ask you to explain the ones that are on the Water Commission what it is, but you just kind of explained what the program is. Yeah.
So basically, it's going to be an added expense for the consumer, because they have to pay for and install that. We don't provide it, but there's also going to be some added cost to the commission themselves and the administration of it as well, staff time, because we've got to keep records, and that we have to actually send people boots on the ground to go and do the inspections and that type of thing. So there'll be a little bit more that we'll have to do, but for the most part, the reason that I bring it here is because, basically, it'll be the water commission that it falls under, that is councilors. Some of you are members of the water commission, but those that aren't, still may get phone calls from a customer, especially if they get told that they're going to spend X number of dollars and they're not happy about it. At least you'll have some background as to why it's going up. Right?
Is that today, Tom, where Digby is helping an Atlas Royal?
Yes.
With water?
Yep.
Are we charging them for that, or are we just helping them out as a sister community?
Basically, they'll be, we're gonna be charged our tanker rate, right? And, I mean, we offered, basically, when we found out that they were in the situation that they were in, we extended the olive branch to whatever we could do to help. I mean, even like if they need manpower for a day to help do something, we were gonna try and help out as a neighbor. Basically, as far as the water is concerned, they are hauling our treated water, right? And so therefore there would be a cost. Now, if they were gonna haul from Van Tassel Lake, which is untreated water, then there probably wouldn't be a charge for it, you know. But they want treated water because when they get their situation fixed, it's gonna be less time for them to get clear tests.
Yes.
If they've got their system full of raw lake water and
eels.
and eels, yeah.
What would they do if they had a big fire?
So, well, they could,
Well, they get pumpers and tankers, you know.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
worst come to worst, they just hook into the basin, right?
Yeah.
And pump, you know,
See
it's
what's
not,
going on.
it's not the best, but, you know, you do what you have to do, and it's a serious fire.
Do they have a time frame trying to get their equipment fixed?
I think it's gonna be probably a couple weeks or so.
So there'll be hauling water. So is there any problem with us in our water supply taking that much out of the system?
No. So basically, like I said, that was the first thing that we considered earlier. And my discussion with Ed was, you know, is it gonna affect us? And as long as we don't run into shortage issues, then, you know, it's fine. If we think that we're gonna start running short, I think there wasn't mentioned on the news that I heard, but I believe they're hauling water from Middleton as well.
Yeah, and Cornwallis.
And they were from Cornwallis, but then the water quality wasn't that great.
Yeah.
And because they were, and so.
It's time consuming too. They have an 18-wheeler that takes 45 minutes to fill.
Oh,
It's an hour trip.
Yeah.
And they can only do it 4 times a day.
Yeah.
And they're using 60,000 gallons a day. And the truck is only, 8,000? It's like a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
60,000 gallons is not very much. You look at the amount of water we use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were complaining that the residents had really tried to
Come
conserve
back.
that.
Yeah, they issued a statement again today. Conserve, conserve, conserve.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't happen to us though.
Anybody's got a water utility, it could happen to them.
Yep. So that's why, you know, the thing is that you're trying to help your neighbor. And basically my understanding is that their water supply, where the actual issue is in the Digby County water utility.
Yeah.
That supplies them with water, right? So that's why they buy their water from Annapolis County, right? That's the problem when you depend on another utility for your water. And there's a lot of them in the province that are that way. basically buy from another utility. And, probably is cheaper for them, I guess, but, when that utility they're buying from has had problems, we've got problems.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Digby Area Recreation, looks like things are ramping up.
It is. Reports in your package,
The-
everything new.
That's the most exciting thing happening there.
Everything right now is, work on the garden and getting the pool ready, and we are looking at, some, beach volleyball courts in the back of the arena. Yep,
Have they talked to any, Peter, about, or have they seen any uptake in any of the programs because the Y is closed?
Not yet that I'm aware of. The one problem that they were having is, even, they're complaining about the water being cold in the pool. So we're looking at maybe some,
It said that.
heat it up a bit, maybe. So,
Well, that's overheating there.
but,
Yeah. Of course, out in the water, the air temperature is 30, you jump in the water and it's 20, it feels cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
and it was the seniors that were,
Yeah, well, they would be more sensitive to it.
Yeah. Another thing they've done that's kind of neat is if you go up to the high school where the basketball courts are there, you'll see a yellow box.
yeah,
So the yellow box is basketballs and hockey balls and stuff so the kids can play with it, and they just put it back on an honor system. So, where else are they doing it? Somewhere else too? Elementary school?
I think so.
Yeah, so there's a couple locations that, it's a trial thing, but it's going really well. So they're not abusing it or stealing them. It's been
Gone past
really-
a few times,
Yeah.
and they've been using
Yeah,
almost every
that's one
time.
with the yellow box was, right?
Only one basketball in the ditch that I've seen.
Yeah, I
so
saw
far.
that yesterday, yeah, so it's been going really well, and it's been being used too, so.
Committee of the whole report. We have a couple of motions there that had to go through council tonight. One was the flag flying administrative policy, that was to be amended, and one of the main reasons was to allow us to fly community flag and special interest flags from time to time, so. Anybody got any?
I'll make the motion for the flag flying administrative policy as presented.
I'll second that.
A discussion, I did talk to Chief Potter about, we were making this move, and we're more than honored to fly their flag, so she was gonna have that discussion with her council, and hopefully that happens, and we have a special day wrapped around that flag, so. I'll be talking to her, talking to her last Saturday, I'll be talking to her hopefully maybe this week. She's a very busy person right now. Yeah, confirm that we did this, so. All
No
those,
special hockey flags flying?
there will be one at 4 games, yes. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. I think everybody said aye to that motion. Any nays? And, first reading of the dog law is presented.
I make a motion, we pass the first reading of the dog bylaw number 2021-01 as presented.
I'll second it.
Everybody recognize this as first reading? Any comments or other questions? No? I read through it a couple times, so it should still allow us to address issues when they come up. All those in favor of that, say aye. Aye. Motion, any nays? None. Motion carried. Digby Area Tourism Association.
What's in your package?
I attended the meet and greet the other night for their media employee they're gonna have for the next few months.
Yes.
Says he's excited to come down and do work. He's been doing work for Kent Fall and some other places. Anybody else got any questions on their report? None? Okay. Waste check. What's happening in the world of garbage? Complicated business, isn't it?
Well,
A lot more than we thought it was.
everything's in the report.
Yeah, it is.
I think the biggest thing they were talking about, William, if I recall, was roadside garbage. That's a big
Yeah.
issue. Everywhere in the county, everywhere in the country, we have issues.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
Yeah. They're talking about moving forward with the elimination of black bags. And right now they're talking about, there are discussions about issuing stickers. So that if you had a group that wanted to collect roadside garbage or do anything with it, they would be able to put in these bags, put a sticker on it, and they would have to consult with the haulers to identify that.
Good idea.
Yeah, I sent out the mock-up for the sticker a day or two after the meeting, I think, so.
I don't understand why somebody would load up a half-ton truck full of garbage and drive 15 kilometers and then dump it. You can drive down to the transfer station here for free and unload it.
I asked Greg at our meeting for the RCMP that very question. I said, Greg, why is somebody, he said, he laughed and said, stupidity.
Well,
He said, the worst one was, he said, the fellow that lived on the corner, of the dump road, took 4 garbage bags, passed the old railway crossing and dumped them in the woods and got fined $250. When he drove right by the dumpster. That was
you got what you deserve.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't, and still the amount of garbage that goes out car windows. When it doesn't matter where you go, there's a garbage can where you stop.
Yeah.
Service station, grocery store, downtown, you know, it hasn't stopped. Yeah, so that's good. Okay, moving on to correspondence. None. Notion of motions. Affordable housing. Is there such a thing as affordable housing? Now, listen to CBC radio this morning, talking about that very issue around Halifax and about the fear of how many people are going to be out on the street because of the rising costs of rents and housing over the next 5 years. So, Paul, this was that letter that you sent out.
Yeah, it was the regular letter. I don't know if you had a chance to read it or not, but it's basically because we all know there's probably going to be a provincial election coming very soon, and that affordable housing report that the government had commissioned is probably going to become a big political football, and nothing's going to be done again. So they want to put as much pressure as they can on the federal government and the provincial government to try and move along a little bit faster. And the problem that I have with our committee, the way that our committee is structured now, the last meeting that we had, we sat on Zoom for about 20 minutes waiting for someone to decide to chair the meeting because the person who was going to do it was away in another meeting. So we discussed the fact that it has to be changed and we have to look at ways of actually dealing with it, setting up a chair, a co-chair, and have a structure and a way to do something, which we've now been 3 weeks trying just to decide a date to sit down and talk about that. It's beyond frustrating. And the other really, really terrible thing is we have all these groups who get on this Zoom meeting about affordable housing, whether they're the Tri-County Wilderness Shelter or what, they all sort of are groups that are sitting on the sideline, just logged on to the call to see what someone else is going to do. And nothing's getting done or discussed or, you know, there is apparently a pot of money for the discovery of what numbers you would need in your town, right? How many rental units was the availability? How many landlords do you have, right? Because the provincial government wants that information to move forward with whatever they want to do. So when you get inside of Metro, you have all those figures. You get outside of Metro, you have nothing. Well, you actually do if you're around long enough, and thankfully the mayor was kind enough to forward one of the reports that we had done. So in our neck of the woods, we were good. We just said, well, have you read this report? They had no idea about it. We sent it back up to them. It was great. I have the warden of Argyle was on the call and asking, well, how do I do this? You know, he's a guy with no time to do anything because he swamped himself. But I said to him, I said, well, start with the basics. You know who rents in your area. You can figure out how many buildings there are, how many tenants there are in there. But you start that way. You can build on that, but beyond that, there's no consensus to do that. So if this group were to, for example, design a survey that someone could simply plug in their numbers, that would tabulate to a central source, then you could at least say, well, in central Nova Scotia, there are X amount of rentals, X amount of people waiting, X amount of need. Then
Stats
you've got-
Canada has some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, you can go to Stats Canada and look and
Yep.
it's a
That's what
nightmare.
we said to the provincial government, is,
Yeah.
well, did you start there? No.
No, it's there, I've looked, and I have town of Digby, single family residence, duplexes, multiplex, whatever, it's listed there.
And then
Yeah.
start talking about the mean income of all these different places, and you sit there and pull your hair out and say, that's Yarmouth, that's great, that's Kentville, that's great, that's not Digby.
No.
That's,
The Premier did mention, maybe it's been since our last meeting, but the Premier did mention that, I shouldn't say they accepted or have seen the report that's come out. And you're correct, it will become a political football here over the next election.
Yeah.
He said they want to address the housing, it was a very brief statement, but they want to address the housing issue in the province. So I know we could put our name to that letter, but I think we should send a letter to,
should we draft our own?
yeah, we could draft
To
our own.
Premier University?
Yeah, we could draft our own.
I'd be up for that.
We could draft our own, and,
Could we send it to other municipalities in our end of this province?
we could see it to them through, especially through the NSFM, because that's been, did I get that right, Father? NSFM? After a year? Yeah, because they would talk about public housing, all municipal units have been talking about that like that. So we'll draft some kind of letter. And for those that haven't got an email yet, the Premier will be in town tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
3 o'clock if you're interested.
2:30.
3 o'clock they're coming to
Yeah, he's gonna walk down through.
downtown.
Yeah, I'm not doing the walking with him. He'll be with candidate
Yes.
Calpine.
Yes.
Do a walk through town after, but so 2:30 there'll be just a short announcement on the port. So one thing across the mind, I got 5 minutes with him. I will mention public housing because it's one of our key things here.
We have a chance at 3 o'clock, he's at the store.
Yeah,
Today, so.
I was talking to Jimmy today, he said he was gonna, he told me where he was headed, so. Yeah, so let's work on some kind of response, and to the Premier, but also to the Department of
Housing.
Housing, whatever they call themselves today.
You want to start, Tom, and then send it to you to?
Yeah, if you wanna draft something, then we can tweak it, stuff like that, yeah. It's, but today they were, CBC, listened to for about 45 minutes before we had to give up, but it was all the public housing situation in Halifax, which is, they've said it's beginning to reach a crisis because the cost of housing in Halifax, people can't afford to live or rent.
You know.
They were in one building, there were 60 units, and 30 of them was subsidized housing. So they're doing it. Yep. Half the building was subsidized housing.
We kind of missed the boat on pitting the issue of the amount of subsidy too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hasn't changed in many, many years.
No. No, this person was, I better say, I can't recall the dollar she was getting, but she did say what she was getting from the province and and the rent took the rest of her money.
They'd estimated they need 33,000 units in the country.
In the country, 33,000. Well, I'd like to have 300, didn't we? Yeah. Okay, anything else? Big game tonight. Everybody go home, enjoy hockey in July. Hard to believe, hockey in July.
Well, they had a fire July 4th to keep warm, so.
I turned the furnace on.
Yeah.
It's cold. Do a motion to adjourn. Anybody second that, or?
Second.
Yeah. Oh, you want to lose second.